Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors Podcast, and this is episode number 83. Wait till you see what I got in store for you with Patricia Cuffie Jones. Woo, woo, woo. Patricia Cuffie Jones is an Emmy-nominated writer, director, showrunner. She's worked with Tyler Perry, with Bentley Evans. She's incredible, a dear friend of both mine and Jesse's. She also has, maybe most impressively, edited a season of this very podcast. Yay! We were lucky to have her. In this episode, we're going to discuss how to work a 9-to-5 and thrive. How to have a thriving creative life / career while also working a real job. She's also going to talk about what directors want from your self-tapes. Oh my God, I love this conversation. She just really opens up because, the directors are the decision makers. Casting directors send you forward, but the directors really are the ones that decide whether or not you're going to get the job or not. So I really wanted a director to come on and talk about what is it in a self-tape as we prep for Selftape May. What is it in a self-tape that you maybe really want to practice so that your tape is the selection? All right, everybody, Selftape May. We are getting ready. 16 self-tapes all done in the month of May. Can you handle it? Can you cross the finish line? It's a free challenge, free frizzle, free 99. That's free. Selftapemay.com. People are signing up. There's so many people that are signing up, posting. I love all the classes that are joining in. I love all the agents, managers, casting directors who are shouting it out. I'm really pumped, you guys. I am pumped. I'm pumped. I love you guys. Your Selftape May gives me life. I just love it so much. Okay, so Selftape May, it's harder than you think it's going to be. Why? So the most common answers are finding a reader that many times a month, 16 times to find a reader. Finding sides, finding 16 sides. And also keeping motivated, knowing how this is going to serve you in the real world, knowing how this is going to help set you up for the future after Selftape May, how this work is really going to serve you going forward. Okay, so the really good news is this is true. We literally thought about these problems and we were like, how can we connect with sponsors to give you solutions to this problem? Okay, so we are now presenting you our Selftape May sponsors. Woo, woo, woo. First sponsor, first up, the one, the only, WeAudition.com. We Audition. If you don't, you're gonna need it. Okay, you need a reader? WeAudition's got readers. It's got all the readers in all the countries, which is so great because there are times where I get a self-tape at legit, I got one at 1:46 in the morning and I needed to be on WeAudition and the wee hours of the morning because it was due at 1. And it's so great because there are people awake in other countries on WeAudition.com. So you go on to WeAudition.com, promo code Selftape May. That's so easy. Our next really incredible sponsor, which I'm really excited about, I've been talking with them for a couple years now, and that is Castability. Okay, do you have 16 sides ready to go? Are you like, I've got my 16 sides, Audrey, I'm ready to go? If not, do you know where to look for sides? It's the biggest thing. Everyone's like, Audrey, where do I find sides? And nobody likes the answer of just transcribe them. Because transcribing sides, it kind of sucks. It sucks to play and pause and play and pause and play and pause. So we've got a solution for you. In partnering with Castability, I made it very clear. I need sides. Give me sides. Give me your sides. So Castability has available to Selftape May participants 20 sides available to you. These are sides created by a writer's room that Castability has hired. All you got to do is download the app. It's free. It's free. It's free 99. You pay nada. You pay zip. You pay zilch. It is the best deal. You can just go on to castability.actor on the web, or you can download the Castability app and they are going to send you 20 free sites. Also, when you go on there and you sign up anyway, they have these competitions that they do every week. So I think it's a really great practice. So download the Castability app and get your sides. And while you're there, if you want to use Selftape May to maybe get a little competition going, check it out. They've got all the information on there. See if it's right for you. All right, and our last one, we've got the one, the only, the juggernaut of all things casting in Los Angeles. We've got Casting Networks. Woohoo! Okay, we're doing all these self-tapes. You're going to do them. And there's lots of intentions that you can have for self-tapes. Hopefully, the greatest intention is booking, right? This is to get you better at booking. We want our booking numbers up. And what do you want to book? We all want to book professional roles. What are professional roles, you say? Roles that pay you. They pay you professional money. What platform has more professional roles booked than any other casting service in the entire universe? Casting Networks, that's true. castingnetworks.com/Audrey, promo code Audrey. Are you starting to see the theme here, you guys? For $50 off. Okay, here's the thing. You're going to have to sign up for it. So wouldn't you rather save $50? Do me a favor. Go on to castingnetworks.com/Audrey, use the promo code Audrey, get $50 and spend that $50 on literally anything else. Take a picture of it and tag me in it and be like, I saved $50, got this great pillow off Etsy. Thanks, Audrey. Or maybe you're going to put it in your savings account. If you send me a picture of like, deposited into my savings account, $50. Thanks, Audrey. I would be so proud of you. castingnetworks.com/Audrey, promo code Audrey. You guys, you took really great care of the baby that we saved from the well. There are so many more reviews. This baby is safe. The baby has the cutest little shoes now. So I want to thank everyone for saving this baby. Canker, Chloe MBF, Video Arcade, Manon Pages, love you, Manon, Daisy G1234, Ek Witten, Holly Tatum, Reg 1025, and LRW Chen. You guys, when you leave me reviews, it's like when you go and sit at Chili's and suddenly the first fajita round passes you before you've even ordered. And you hear that like sizzle, sizzle, crack, crack. We're not sponsored by Chili's. I just truly love it this much. And it's like sizzle, sizzle, crack, 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 crack. And you're like, oh my God, I love fajitas so much. And then before you can even order the fajitas for no reason that you can make sense of, they bring you an awesome blossom with ranch and barbecue sauce for dipping. And I'm like, why did I get this ranch and barbecue sauce? And they're like, because you're awesome. That really makes me happy, like just thinking about it. I want to like squish myself. So thank you, everyone. Please leave us a review. It is so happy. All right, everybody. I hope you are setting up a self-tape audition or going back in the room. You guys, I went back in the room for an audition and callback this last week, and I saw all of my friends. I was like, oh my God. Remember when we were a community and we loved each other? We would see each other. We gave so many hugs. Shout out to Shannon Hollander, who I haven't seen ever in person, and yet I'm her biggest fan. So I hope you're setting up a self-tape audition or that you're back on your way to an audition. Book it. Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Patricia Cuffie Jones.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Audrey.
I am so glad we made this happen.
I am too.
I love it. And so our listeners who have been avid fans for years will recognize your name because you are the editor for season 3
Yes.
and did a fantastic job.
Thank
so you are
you.
very familiar with all things Audrey Helps Actors,
Yes.
which I love.
Yes.
I want to talk about your career. I want to talk about your perspective as a creator, a director, a writer, Emmy-nominated writer, you guys. Add that to her little pin. So let's start with a little about you. So you're from Baltimore?
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. B. Moore.
Wonderful.
Yes. It's interesting. My journey was pretty quick. I was writing all my life. I didn't realize it was a gift or talent until my late teens, but I used to always write. Even now, my parents have stacks of composition books in their garage. They're still trying to get me to get rid of. It was just what I always loved to do. So I started in theater. My youth pastor at my church encouraged me. I was telling him how I was writing and doing things, and he really encouraged me to do something with it. He was like, you should put something up. You know, God is giving you a gift and something to say, you should say something. So I produced my first play where I wrote, directed, cast it, set design, all that stuff at 14 with some friends from my church. And we every week performed these live plays as part of a church service. It was almost like a live soap opera.
I love that. I love that you were doing one a week. That's
It was
crazy.
it was crazy. Now that I think about it, I was like, man, he was really preparing me for episodic writing without me even knowing it, because I do like these 45-minute plays and we have to do it live. So I learned so much during that process. And I always loved theater. My dad always took me to see a lot of off-Broadway plays because he had a friend who was an usher and she would let us know what's in town. So we got to see all kinds of cool plays that came into town at the biggest theater in Baltimore. And then my aunt, Donna Lynn, is a dancer. Now she's a college professor and she has her own fitness studio and she's like this health guru. But at the time she was my Aunt Donna, she just did tons of musicals. So I would go to all of her plays, even some of her rehearsals. And I was just like in awe. Like, I mean, watching Tap Dance Kids and Eyes, which was based on the book Their Eyes Watching God, which is one of my favorite books. And it just inspired me. It was around me all the time. My family, very musical, very much in the arts, artists, all of that stuff. So it was always around me. And then one day a friend of mine invited me to see a play, an urban play. It was one of Tyler Perry's earliest plays that was touring and just killing it around the country. And I went to see one of the plays and I was just in awe of just the response from the audience. Like, this is the first time I went to a play where the audience was screaming and laughing and talking back, and the engagement from the stage and breaking the fourth wall and just all this fun stuff. But the most important thing is how it made everyone feel. It got a response, a reaction, and just made people feel something. And I got to see that firsthand. And I'm like, man, I think I could really do this. I mean, I was already doing plays at my church, but I just never seen kind of what I was doing on a larger scale. So after that, I ended up talking to Tyler Perry's team and I interned with them. Every time Tyler Perry came into town, I was interning with them.
And how old are you at this point?
I was in my early 20s.
Great.
And I was interning. And then I was like, wait a minute, he's not the only person I can learn from. So I literally, every time I heard on the radio a show was in town, I knocked on the backstage door and begged them to let me intern with them. I'll sweep floors, I'll clean. I just want to be around and just learn things. And I learned so much. And, you know, urban plays were really huge at the time. So it was a really big deal. So I met so many people and worked with so many people and were caught in so many situations where sometimes because I was just there, I had to go on stage because an actress was having a tantrum, wouldn't go on stage. So I had to go on stage and fill in for somebody at the last minute.
Oh my
and
gosh.
not know anything. It was crazy, but it was fun. And that was just the life. And from doing all of that, I met Dave Talbert, who done several films, but his most recent one was Jingle Jangle on Netflix. That killed it. He really took me under his wing and he mentored me for about 13 years. When I moved to LA, he was the first industry professional that I worked for. I worked as his creative assistant for several years on a few of his projects that he was doing for stage, for VOD, DVD, and learned a lot from him. And after that, I just started doing my own plays out here in LA. North Hollywood, Black Box Theater Heaven. A friend of mine took me to see a show there and I was like, wait a minute, I could afford this.
right. This is doable. This scale doable. I could do. Yeah.
So I started doing that for several years. Through that, I got a few NAACP nominations my actors have for one of my productions.
More than a few. You got more than a few, I think.
We got, I believe, 5 nominations. In one category, we swept the category completely with the talent from my production. So that was really, really awesome. You know, I can go on and on about my world in theater. Brett Dismuke, he saw one of my plays. He gave my first distribution deal where I was able to get my play shot kind of like for TV, VOD, DVD. And it was, you know, all over the place. It was on iTunes, Netflix, Amazon, everywhere. And then I've done a few more after that with Chuck West, who's another producer. Just a lot. That landed me to LA, and that's how all the LA stuff got going.
And you've been here for how long?
I moved here in 2004. But the crazy thing, Audrey, is the majority of the time that I was out here, I had a 9-to-5 job. I was working, happily working a 9-to-5 job that also fueled other passions that I had, which was working with kids and health and wellness. I was a program director for multiple locations of the YMCA, supervising lots of people, hundreds of classes, teaching. I'm a Zumba instructor.
I have heard the legend of your Zumba class. I have heard tell the legend.
Yes. So I was doing all this while working a 9-to-5 job. And that money from the 9-to-5 job paid my bills. And instead of going out, I didn't have the top name brand clothes, any of that stuff. I invested all that money into my passion. And that's how I funded my shows that I did and that I produced, that opened up all the other doors that got me doing what I'm doing now full time.
I
So
mean, I just want to pause and say how much I love you,
I love
and
you,
that
Audrey.
we love each other. We just like really love each other. I mean, your journey in so many ways is so reminiscent of so many of the same paths I took of working a day job, putting in full-time employment, and then I didn't go out with my coworkers afterwards. I didn't go and have drinks. I didn't go hang out. I went and did the thing that I loved, and I pursued continually the passion. I did a lot of theater like you, and I continued to focus and focus and refocus and refocus. And what I love so much is we get a lot of actors who really are struggling with boundaries between their professional 9-to-5 life or even their day job life if it's not 9-to-5, and then making time, energy, and money for this professional pursuit. And one of the things I'm always saying is, do you have the time, energy, and money for success in a business which has a 97% unemployment rate? And how are you going to continue to fuel yourself in order to have that resilience, have the energy, and have the passion? And you get to days and you're tired. You're just tired. Do you have rituals? Do you have practices? Where do you get reserves for your passion, for your energy, for your resilience in times when you're feeling just a little spread thin or burnt out?
My faith is everything. It is the center and core of who I am. So one, me coming out here, I knew was a calling from God to come out here. So I knew that no matter what, even when times are low, I can't fail because he brought me here. So everything that I go through out here is obviously a part of my journey. It's a part of the learning. It's a part of the building. It's a part of the equipping me for the things that I cannot see. So sometimes I have to go through some things to tighten up my skin some at this level so that I'm equipped when I get to the next level, and I won't have to go through some of the same things. I won't have to cry in the corner. I won't have to experience some of the same, what we consider losses, but actually they're just growth opportunities, really. And that's how I had to start seeing things, even when it was rough. A few things definitely helped me along the way. One, going back to the 9-to-5 job, I had a job that I was passionate about. I was positively impacting the lives of young people and families. So I didn't feel like when I was there, I'm just buying my time here because this is what I really want to do. Directing and writing full time was a huge passion of mine, but I couldn't ignore this other thing that I could also do. So my prayer was, God, when I'm done with this assignment of working this 9-to-5 job, where I know I'm making a change and helping people, then you have to release me from it so that I know it's time for me to fully focus on the next thing. Because I have people to this day that don't even talk to me, because when they first moved out here, they were like, hey, Patricia, I'm here. I'm ready to blow up, get it popping. Hey, LA, I'm here, because their thing was, as soon as I get out here, I'm talented. I just have to be here. Right. Everything's going to happen because I finally made it to LA. Whoo, Audrey. But
that is not
Audrey!
real.
But that being able to stay in LA, that being able to manage and navigate through LA, that thing of finding a strong support system in LA.
Creating a strong support.
And inviting it by being a person that people want to be around and people want to believe in. My audiences starting out, a lot of them were my Zumba students, my hip hop dance students, and my colleagues. My supervisors, they allowed me to use, I used to work at the YMCA. They allowed me to use some of the YMCA to hold rehearsal sometimes, because I didn't have time to catch the bus at the time when I didn't have a car and make it all the way to North Hollywood so I could rehearse there. They invested and believed in me because they went to one of my productions and say, this girl really has something and she's still here. So I'm really grateful that I had people around me in every direction that believed in me. And I still grew in my 9-to-5 job. I was great at my job. I excelled at my job. Got promoted constantly at my job. I was a good steward of what he's given me, but I was also still honing my craft. I was still going to workshops. I was still looking for free talkbacks and things to go to, people to still volunteer with and learn from. I was honing my craft instead of just waiting for something to happen to me, because I knew that I was going to start creating my own opportunities. And I wanted to create opportunities for other actors that I knew that were amazingly talented. So it was so much bigger than me, Audrey, when I made it more about the mission and the purpose and the passion I had the blessing of being able to exercise. That helped me hold on. You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah,
Um,
I just love that so much because so many things that you said I really want to capitalize on in this discussion for everyone listening. And one is having a day job that you're passionate about. I think a lot of creatives are told a lie that they have to only focus on the one thing they're passionate about, while yet also not actually being able to support themselves on that thing. And so there's a little bit of magical thinking that occurs of a dream that it's going to happen in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Meanwhile, they're dragging along in a job that is crushing them and isn't really capitalizing on all of the incredible gifts that they have as a person, not even just as an artist, but as just a human being,
as a
right?
human being.
And what I love so much is it is such a wonderful walking example of the two feeding each other. And I always tell people when they're concerned about a passionate day job overtaking their time, energy, and money to have an artistic pursuit, I just say that's just called boundaries.
That's called boundary and balance.
Balance, and you have to learn that.
And it's not easy. You're not going to get it right. There were times where I was like, man, I wish I would have written a little more or stayed up a little longer or whatever. But one thing is, and I learned this earlier on, you have to remove the time. That doesn't mean you can't set goals. This is just my personal opinion. That doesn't mean you can't set goals, but to say, I'm going to get booked in a year, you may very well do that. But what if the goal is, I'm going to see a certain amount of casting directors within a year, or I'm going to take a certain amount of classes or workshops or something where in some sense you're able to control? Because if you don't get booked in a year, that doesn't mean you're not talented. That doesn't mean you don't have it. You just haven't had the chance to walk into the right room yet. The right project hasn't been revealed to you yet. There's so much that's beyond our control, but that doesn't mean things can't happen. You just have to make sure you manage it. Because I know people where when things don't happen within a certain time period, they're ready to pack up and leave. And that may be the path you're on. Again, there's nothing wrong with going.
No judgment about it.
No judgment at all. I think setting goals and having those things in place and being focused is very vital. Just be careful of the type of goals you're setting, because this industry is fluid. Things change. Things could be hot one minute, not the next minute. But that doesn't mean you don't have value and something to add. That doesn't mean there's a production or a project that's in a work that's perfect for you. And you just have to wait your time, but still build up the skill set that makes you perfect and allows you to be perfect for that role. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, and that does have so much to do, I think, with your incredible faith. And
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people listening didn't grow up with that. They don't relate to that. And what I would love to inject to those listeners is, in my experience, it does get easier as you're here long enough and you do see how things that you didn't think were going to pay off, pay off. You do see how this relationship or that small thing or whatever it is that it does build upon itself. And this thing you said earlier about certain things setting you up for the future in a way that you can't know, certain hardships or strains or pains that you might go through, really prepping you for the next thing. And one thing I really think that is hard for people to understand until they've reach the other side of this level of production and this level of what we'll call like industry success, right? Quote unquote, is you may not at 23 years old, right when you graduate from college and arrive in your market, you might actually not be ready to take on the blessing of a 22 episode series regular role. You may not be ready for that yet. And so you are being prepped in a way that maybe you can't understand for all of those hours and all of that pressure, even the kind of person you want to be on set. I know for me, it was like, I want to be a person on set who is giving energy and graciousness and enthusiasm and creativity and ideas. But I was able to hone that through years of realizing that's something I really value. And I don't know that if I had gotten it earlier, that I would have understood that and been able to have that be an impactful part of my experience on set as well.
There are two things you said I want to touch on. That was fantastic. First of all, I want you to know that I will book you anytime, any day of the week. Let me tell you something. You were such a joy on set.
Let's tell them the show
Okay,
so they can all
so
watch
my
it.
series Stuck With You that is currently streaming on AMC's All Black. You guest starred in my second season, which was like a dream. And
Yeah.
you said yes. And
Ditto.
it was so awesome, so fun. You were so great. You had so many things that I wish I could have included. Every take was brilliant. But I want to touch on two things you said. The reason I brought you up is because you were talking about just being ready to be in a certain environment and the expertise. So I love giving opportunities to fresh talent. I love seeing something in someone and think to myself, how can I help them build upon that? How can I help pull that out of them? How can I help them believe in themselves even more and trust their choices? And then I also love working with veterans. And I've had a veteran on my show who worked a lot at one point, then didn't work, and then, here and there. And when he came to set, when I tell you, he was so professional, gracious, watching how he responds to things, even when things weren't flowing well, wasn't having a huge meltdown, even when the actor he was working with might have had a little meltdown, he stayed poised and in control, came prepared, knew what he was supposed to do, was pleasant and polite to everybody from the PA to myself, even with sharing thoughts and ideas and suggestions, would try things out instead of always just combating the idea because he wanted to do what he studied, 30 hours at home. He was such a joy, had more experience than a lot of the other people that were on set. Then I have someone that's maybe a little newer on set who is still doing well, thriving in a career, but when things don't flow right, might have, a situation or a little bit of a meltdown or, and for the record, I've worked on several productions and several sets, films, TV, stage plays, everything. So don't try to figure out.
You've seen all the meltdowns.
I've seen different things. But my point in sharing that is I would hire that veteran any day of the week. If I had a role that fit him, I would even create a role for him. That's how much I enjoyed his level of professionalism. But I can tell that came from years of learning how to navigate yourself in rooms, of how to navigate yourselves on different sets. My production is smaller budget production. It's not like an NBC situation, but I felt respected as if I was on an NBC set. And not everyone does that. I've had some fresher actors that did not respond with the same level of professionalism, did not care about how this moment can impact the impressions of others on set. They just had to be in this moment because they felt entitled to that moment.
Yes, entitled.
And anytime I see that, Audrey, my goal is to make sure my people are good. That means my crew and my talent. So I'm going to try to bring you back in where you need to be so that we can get the performance that we need so that when you look back on this moment, you're not even remembering your meltdown, but you're proud of what you see on the screen.
That's very generous of you.
Because it's a bigger picture thing. I'm thinking outside of myself, out of this moment. I can't have pride and ego in the way. It's a bigger picture, right? But what I would definitely employ with talent is be mindful of these moments because there are people that I would invite back. There are people I've had directors that had big studio budgets that called me and they appreciated my work so much. It's like, send me one actor. I have a role. I will cast whoever you send me. Whoever you send me, I will cast them for this role. This is the look. I trust you. Send me somebody, now cast them. And there was an actor I worked with at the time that always said yes to me since the day I met him. I was not a name in this industry, but he said yes to me. And when they called, he fit the bill. I sent him, he got cast. And now he's starring alongside some A-list celebrities in a big film. Because I just appreciated his work ethic. I knew he would represent me well as a referral because I know he knows how to treat people. And I knew he would appreciate the opportunity. It's important. It's important to know how to carry yourself and just being appreciative. That doesn't mean kissing bud. That doesn't mean none of that.
Authentic.
Just be authentic and realize that none of this is promised for any of us tomorrow. Right?
And it's a big machine.
It's a big machine.
And a set is a house on fire. That's a natural state of a set. And your job isn't to put out the fire. Your job is simply not to add to the fire. Don't have the fire grow. Just going to manage the fire and don't blow it up, but you don't need to put it out. And I always really like that perspective because it keeps me in check of like, do my job wonderfully. And it also made me think of a thing that I always mention on this podcast, which is there are three things and you really have to have at least two of the three. And it's being literally of financial value to a production. So do you equal funding for the creatives? Two is, are you really incredible? Is your work really incredible? And 3 is, are you wonderful to work with? Now, if you are worth enough money, you will definitely find people who will put you in stuff, even if you're not super great and you're not great to people. But it's not usually the caliber of productions, right? But I have seen actors who have gotten a smattering of success, and I get it, you guys, all those years of insecurity do flip on you and turn into a sense of entitlement.
I deserve this moment.
Right. Yeah. And it becomes a weird turn of insecurity and kind of nastiness. And listen, I want everyone to know I've had my own moments, and I have had to reflect on them, and I have learned ways to keep myself in check and to reel the demon part in. If you are not equaling budget to a production yet, you're not equaling financing. Your picture is not in a book at the studios where they flip through you and have a dollar amount assigned to what you equal and bring into the production, which means then you need to be truly incredible. Come ready, work on it beforehand, work on it with people, be ready, be flexible, and then be a gracious joy on set. And if you're having moments of overwhelmment, if you're having moments, because it gets overwhelming and pressure, and we're actors, we're sensitive little beings, but this is again about creating your support system. You'll have a manager that you can call, have a spouse or a best friend, have someone else who can talk you off the ledge in the trailer by yourself, so that you're not spilling that drama all the way and taking time up that is literally valuable.
That's the part.
On set.
That's the part. And that's why I definitely try to bring people in, because time is of the essence. And hopefully you have a great support system even on set. Hopefully you can even talk to your second AD. Like, I've had talent, let them know, like, hey, I just need a moment. I've seen talent trying to come down off of being emotionally hijacked, and I've given them the moment. I've had an actress that did that, and she had a reason to blow up because I was upset by what happened on set. I could have blown up, but I had to keep my composure. I had to set the flow of, the day. But she had a moment. So instead of blowing up and cursing everybody out, she said, give me a moment. She took her moment. She did some breathing, got it together, came back and killed it. I would refer her to any project because she knew how to manage things. And I think there's always a support system around you. And if you don't, you're right, then you can lean on your team. But I think communication is key, even if you've had a bad day. For me, I can always tell when something's off with my cast members. There was one time where one of my actors came to set and was just like off. And I'm like, something's up, pulled them aside. And it was related to the death of a loved one. And they needed moments. So I took 15 minutes and walked them around the block and let them talk to me. I encouraged them, even prayed with them, and they were settled and they were ready, and they came back and they killed it. And it was a big day for them. They had a lot of pages to do. It was a big day for them. But I understand things on a different level. And it's important for this to be able to positively feed people too. Because just like I hear a lot of no's, I know actors hear a lot of no's. They deal with a lot of rejection. It's hurtful, often feel less than, you're not worthy, you're not good enough. Those are the things that a lot of us walk away with in this industry, right? When you get a no and how the no happens. And I think anytime we as leadership on a production can positively pour into talent, you're building this person up for the next production to possibly be even better. Or if this is their last shot, they're not walking away from, this thing like, I'm worth nothing. There are other things you can do. There are other gifts and talents you can do. I think that just in general, it's important for us to treat each other like we're all worthy, period.
Yes, you're so right, because we're getting the opposite message all the time. Right. And it's not actually the message we're getting, but it's the way that
it feels. It could be a simple, unfortunately, wasn't the right fit.
It's not going to go your way.
I'm worth nothing.
Exactly. I'm a failure. Exactly.
What have I been doing all my life?
But wait, Cuffie, you powerhouse, rock star, goddess, genius of care and inspiration. Wait. M20 for life. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by We Audition. That's weaudition.com. Promo code Selftape May. Promo code Selftape May. One word. Selftape May. One word. You have to have readers available to you at all times. You also, it's a great thing to do to practice being a reader. You will learn so much about traps and tricks that actors are using. I love watching how other people work and just seeing, when people are accidentally doing something or they're purposely doing something that's really working. It can give you ideas. And, one of the things that's really hard about being an actor and trying to level up is you often usually only have access to the people that are kind of at your level. You're all in the same classes, you're doing things like that. But going on We Audition, you have the opportunity as a reader, especially, to go and watch other actors who are like series regulars and have been doing this for 20, 30 years and watch them be facile and watch how they get ready and watch them deliver. And I think it can be really incredible information to just let you see like, oh, that's what a really fantastic booking prepared tape looks like. And the more you go on weaudition.com, promo code SelftapeMay, the more you're going to do that. Please call 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs. You guys, I really love your listener questions. Please call them in.
Hey, Audrey. My name is Clint, and I live in New York City. So I've lived here about 2 years now. I moved here after college, and I moved here originally for my Broadway musical theater dreams, like lots of other people. But just, listening to your podcast and really thinking about getting my shit together, I'm like, okay, maybe theater is not the only way like I thought it was. Maybe I need to entirely transition to film and TV and commercials. So you talk a lot about how if you're a comedy actor in New York trying to do on-camera work, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because 70% of comedies shoot in LA. So what would you say is what type of actor is the right actor to be in New York, would you say? Thank you so much for answering the question. Love the show and look forward to what you have to say.
Hi, Clint. I love this question. I don't think we've ever really addressed this, who is really right for New York and why. And so I will say a few things. First of all, definitely people whose heart is in musical theater and theater in general. I understand. I just want to give a little bit of information sitting on this side of the mountain with my friends who are booking working theater actors for decades now. They've sort of had a level of success in musical theater and theater in specific in the New York and UK area. And something that I think is worth letting everyone know about that my friends didn't think about until they had already spent 20 years in theater, which is residual income. So you can do a play and you can workshop it from the very beginning and be there for 2 years. And then you can bring it to Broadway and it can open and it can go full speed and you can get nominated for Tony Awards, all of which is great. But when the show ends, the money ends. It's very hard. Whereas if you are in film and television specifically, you have set up what's called residual income. Residual income means that you filmed it, it aired, and it's going to continue to air for a really long time. And because someone else is continuing to profit off of your work in film and television, that means that your work is being paid continuously because they're continuing to profit off of it. So that is extremely unique, and that is because of SAG-AFTRA and the work that we have done for 100+ years as part of this union. And it is why all of the actors from other countries come to ours. It's why people go into film and television, is that the residual income is truly the golden goose. That is what sustains you through your thinner years. And I want you to think about working actors on Broadway at 50 years old, doing 8 shows a week at an older age, just on the body, that can be really challenging. And if you don't have residual income or you haven't invested wisely to float you as you get older, then, you're going to be facing a really challenging several years down the road. So that's one thing just to consider in terms of theater. And I just also want to say, this is not a knock against theater. I love theater. I love musical theater. Like, I'm just like so glad that people do musical theater. It's one of my favorite forms of art ever. And I totally get the like hit, the magical, like, just like grace of musical theater performance. I get it. But I just want you to understand and consider that, only because I have friends who wish somebody had told them. In terms of who's great for the market, I would say definitely if you are an actor who craves and desires theater. If you're an actor who loves New York, there's something really valuable about loving where you live. The profession is already really challenging. And if you wake up every day and you're like, I hate this fucking town that I live in, but I'm an actor, so I guess I'll just keep slogging through. I think that's like putting a dragnet on yourself and your passion and your life and your love. So if you love New York, if the city like does it for you, then great. But when you think of what's really shooting mostly in New York, you think of the Dick Wolf universe, you think of David Simon, you think of Amy Sherman Palladino, Dan Palladino, Jenji Cohen, Adam McKay. What are those universes? I mean, those are some of the biggest producers of that area. What does that mean? Well, Dick Wolf's universes of FBI and the Chicago universe, which films in Chicago but casts a lot out of New York. Obviously, the Law and Order franchise. We're talking a lot of lawyers, a lot of victims. We're talking a lot of people like in the service industry, and the tone of it, you know, bum, 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 like that's the tone, right? We think of David Simon, again, like gritty, just hard truths, just a lot, you know, really like the city is coming through no matter what time period he's doing. So it's like, it's dark and it's real and it's gritty. Amy Sherman Palladino, right? We think of Bunheads, and then you think of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, like we're bright and full of life. But if you look at who she's casting casting a lot of Broadway dancers and actors. She loves people who can move. She is a former dancer, so she really appreciates that. Amy and Dan. Adam McKay, again, like there's a pace to it. There's a business sense. It's like money in New York, like the industry of money in New York City, right? Like Wall Street. What are those types? So if your casting is Ohio and not the metropolitan of New York, it's kind of something that is pretty specific, because I'm going to wager, like, how do you know if your casting is like Michigan? It was surprising to me that my casting is very Middle American, because I left Middle America when I was 18, and compared to back home, I'm very metropolitan. But compared to everyone who's metropolitan, I am so Middle American. So it's a hard thing to wrangle, but I really encourage you to just think of the worlds, those professions, like, I don't know what to say, like New York finance, pace, like it's got that sort of dogmatic thing to it. So I hope that answers your question.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So then let's talk about this thing that I really want to discuss with you, which is self-tapes. I'm sure you're watching a lot of self-tapes these days in terms of making your creative decisions. We do a movement called Self-Tape May, and people practice their tapes, and we're always hearing from casting directors and we're hearing from agents, but what people don't realize is, like, Patricia is the decision maker. And sometimes it's Patricia and maybe other producers that you're working with, right? But everyone's getting told a million different things, and often by, honestly, I think unqualified people who haven't even really, done self-tapes themselves. They are teachers who were acting in a time when there wasn't self-tapes, or maybe people that their careers have a resume and a reel that is really helping them get roles, and it's less about the self-tapes maybe. So when you're watching tapes, there's basics of, can I hear you? Can I see you? Can I hear the other person who's reading with you? What are some things that really stand out to you or have stood out to you in terms of, like, wow, that's an incredible performance. This person's right for this role. I'm going to root and go to bat for this person to cast them.
Interesting, because I've had to do that recently.
I love.
When it feels like they really know the character. Without reading the script, they have painted a picture of this character that I believe and that I feel is helping me see who I've been reading about or who I've been writing about. Yes, that is key for me. There was recently for an audition for a project that I was working on, there was a young lady and her read was good. But I knew, and everyone's different, just to say, because I know some directors where they want the casting director, send me your top 3 people, and that's it. Sometimes I want to see more than the top 3 because sometimes I have some other things in my mind the casting director may not really understand, and I can see other things. So sometimes I want to see more than just the top 3, especially if they're not really rocking for me all the way. But this young lady, there was just something about her, and I'm like, I feel like she can do this, but her choices, it was like she was almost there and then she pulled back. And then in the second take, it was like too close to the first take. And there was just no true difference in her choices. So the producers were not feeling her. They didn't like her. They liked somebody else. I'm like, this other person's good. But sometimes I can tell people that are just good on tape, like, man, she seems like she might have just prepared for this one choice in this one moment. And I just felt constrained just watching them. It just felt too mechanical. Even though it was good, it just felt mechanical, you know? So I told them, okay, let's do this. Let's have both of the young ladies do another one, and then let's have another conversation. I gave notes to both of them. And I knew what was going to unlock that one young lady. And she delivered. She delivered. And we cast her immediately. The producer's like, I totally see it now. So I would say a piece of advice I would give, and I say this to my actors all the time, give choices, brilliant choices, like choices where you know the character, she might attack it this way or she might attack it that way. Don't become two different people. Just put yourself in the state of how is she feeling about this situation and what are the different ways that she can convey that feeling or emotion or thought, whether it's comedic or dramatic or whatever it is. How does she feel about that? If I feel like you have some sense of the character, that works for me. I can work with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's so great. I love all of what you're saying because Jesse's always saying the same thing to me because in self-tapes, we can get perfectionist-y, especially a lot of us who come from theater. We are thinking of like this perfect theatrical performance that's like been directed and architected. And he's always reminding me, they just want to see like, are you right for the role? However, I do think then the other side that happens to a lot of actors that I see all the time in watching tapes for this podcast is just doing like it's all the same note. Everyone's doing a tape that's just like 3 minutes of the exact same thing. And so when you're saying make choices, I think actors hear that all the time and they think like, yes, I understand making choices. And what I've realized is so few actors understand story. They understand the basics of story. Why is this character in this scene? And how is this scene moving the story along to the next scene? Because if we don't need this scene, it's going to get cut. And the writer wouldn't spend the time writing this scene if they didn't feel they needed it, right? And so what are some things that when an actor's looking at a scene that they can do in terms of helping give it dynamic so that it's not just them sitting, because American training I find is very like I sit, I listen, I'm present.
And I just give you back the dialogue. And
it's great when you have 6 weeks of theater rehearsal and you have a director who's going to shape you and is going to pull something out of you and then you move along and, you know, that happens, right? But in an audition, it's the most boring box behind you. And the writing actually wasn't written to make an incredible self-tape. The writing was written to be a part of a TV show where we'd have sound and music and other shots of the other actors' faces and props and all these things. And so to give dynamic to a self-tape in a way that is engaging, what are some thoughts that you have on that?
Give your character backstory. You have to have somewhere to pull from. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like when I feel like the person really has a grasp and gets the character, to me, they give the best auditions because it's coming from somewhere. If you don't have all the information there, you need to create something that's going to help you tap in. I know some actresses that with very little information, Kelly Jenrette, she is one of my closest, dearest sister friends, Emmy nominated actress. I can give that girl something right now today, and she will give me 5 choices on that one thing. Tap into what's on the page or brighten what's on the page. So how can you brighten what's on the page? How can you make what's
I
on the
love that
page
expression.
dance in your audition? You know, you may have to create a backstory for yourself in that moment. You may have to look at that and figure out who she is and give a captivating moment. You may not have a lot of time. I used to do, when I did theater, majority of my auditions were cold auditions. I did majority cold auditions because I wanted to see what was the raw thing you had to work with.
That's
because in theater, people can, rehearse, and then you get them. And then when you come on set, you have to make adjustments or changes, which happens all the times. And me, because I'm a writer and I direct a lot of stuff that I write, I come up with something on pop, like, let's try this. Let's try that because I'm feeling you and you're killing it. I want to give you something. And I've learned there are some actors that don't know how to make adjustments. I was like, okay, let's try this. And they give me the same exact thing. What about this? They give me the same exact thing. So then I have to have a conversation with you. Okay, what happened to you as a child? What did your uncle wear to Thanksgiving? Something, how can I help you tap into this thing differently? But if you can try that with this audition, with the pages you have, especially if you have the time, create this world for yourself, so that when they call action, you're giving me a personality. I don't even see the person that slates. You know what I mean?
Yes, like it is a full embodiment of this person and their story.
For a moment, no matter how small the role is. There's somebody that did an audition and they gave a solid audition, but I was digging them for something else. I just saw something else because I liked the personal touch they put to it. But it wasn't enough for that character, but it was enough for one of the lead roles.
Oh, yes. I do love
that. They weren't auditioning for.
Yes,
and I called them and say, don't take this as a bad thing. It's not that you didn't do a good job, but I just felt something. I saw something and I wanted more of it. And I cast people all the time in other roles because of just the thing that they bring. And then there are times where, because I'm also the type of person, everything doesn't have to be big. Big isn't always better. Sometimes, especially with, African-American projects, certain projects may call for that, especially because a lot of us come from stage, because a lot of projects will go from stage to film to other things. And sometimes people think I have to match that kind of energy. But you also, if you're going to do that, then when you give another choice, make sure it's another choice. Show them that you know how to bring it in. Like I always tell my actors, bring me into the situation. Don't play out to me. Bring me into it. You know what I mean? Because then it's a more concentrated choice. It's a choice more prepared for camera rather than for a stage. So I think it really depends on people's flow, but you have to figure out how can you best embody this and literally turn into this personality aside from the slate.
Yeah, I love that. What I also love that you're saying, that it really reminds me of something that I feel very passionately about for self-tapes, which is I think people spend their self-tape, actual taping part, trying to get it. They're trying to get the take that they'll send. And I really encourage people to spend that hour experimenting.
Yes.
Already have a great idea of the character, already have an incredible sense of the scene, the relationships, the environment, all of those things, a moment before, what's happening after, all of the sort of just basic acting stuff, have that. But I really think it's valuable. I've found a lot of value in then taking the hour and playing within that and then watching it after. And then I see okay, what now is exciting to me? What is to me telling the story the best? And it can be random things I'll try personalizing a person that I'm talking to as maybe my mom, and then I'm going to do the person I'm talking to as maybe a friend or maybe a boss that I was really intimidated by. And I'm using the 3 different people that I'm personalizing with just to see how that might inform the relationship differently. And then I go back and I watch and I say, you know what, this one where I'm talking to the boss that's really intimidating, I think that gives the most amount of layered conflict that's right for the scene. And what's challenging in actors not understanding story is I think that many are very lost in that final piece of what is telling the story with me in the role and bringing it to life. But in not having an understanding that a story and a scene has a beginning, middle, and end, that it goes somewhere. they leave themselves in danger of being one note because it feels good to them.
Yeah.
Like they feel comfortable.
Yeah. The other thing to take into consideration too is, okay, why did they pick this scene? What is in this scene?
Yes.
You have to, it's
Yes.
more than just can they memorize a line and embody, you know,
Please.
but what is in
Right.
this scene that I can highlight because they
Brighten.
want it for a reason.
Yes.
How can I brighten this scene up? And that's vital, as well as how can I brighten up the scene? What do you have? Because I've had people audition for me where I'm like, oh, their favorite actor is Denzel. Oh, their favorite actor is Taraji. What unique choices can you bring that still gives the essence of this woman, but maybe a little different than the women we've seen before?
Yeah. And then exactly what you're saying, how do you do it? I mean, this is like, I mean, listen, if I could just like find a way to package that and let people like open up the present and really get it tangibly, oh man, Patricia, we would change the industry, because a thing I'm always saying is, what do you have to have in order to have this scene? That like, if this thing was missing, you wouldn't have this scene. And so that's the thing, right? And sometimes it might be even a couple things, but like, what are the elements that have to be present in the scene? Otherwise it wouldn't be here. And then what do you bring to that? So if you have to have, one of the projects I booked was Feud, and it, to me, was a scene about Joan Crawford, the mother, talking to her favorite daughter and basically asking, am I a good mom? Because she had a daughter who was who hated her and she didn't get to talk to them. And that to me was like what you had to have in order to have this scene. And then what do I know about it was, for me, I have a brother who passed away from addiction, and I really believe that my mom was an incredible mom, and that what happened to my brother was not indicative of her as a person and as a mother. So it felt very personal to me, and that's what I, Audrey, identified with, what was important, and also what I felt personal and could bring to brighten the scene out. And you don't always, that's the thing. Sometimes you get an 8-hour window. It's hard to find it. But I do find in sitting down, or not even sitting down, taking that hour and exploring.
Take a moment,
Take a moment to explore and then watch.
Something else that I would add to that, and all of that is so on point, Audrey. Something else I like to tell actors is, don't be afraid to let it breathe. Unless it's hard. A role that calls for a certain cadence, which, you know, sometimes they may, especially if it's an emotional role. Don't be afraid to let it breathe. There are times where I literally remember sitting with even in auditions, like sitting with my casting director, and we'll just clench each other because somebody, they're giving, and then they take that moment where we see your character struggling with, how do I move forward? How do I say what to say? Or just letting the words settle in and then coming back into it, because not often, you have words, the actor, you have words on the page to read, but a lot of us, it's kind of hard to put into words what it is we're trying to say and how to say it. So let it breathe, know what it calls for, because it may not call for the character to be so clean with their delivery. Like, this was so clear in my head that I could say everything that I'm saying right now because it's so on point. I'm so perfect what I'm saying. It may need some of the struggle. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid. Fine. Is there struggle in this scene? And if so, how do I convey that? The other piece of advice I would say is set yourself up to win in your setup. There was someone that I knew was great for this role. I was excited to give her this opportunity. As her audition, she did not schedule her time right to do it, so she had to do it while she was at work. And literally, she was like, I mean, it was almost like she could have been hiding behind a desk. She was whispering the audition and was just like, trying not to be too loud. And because, you know, she was trying to do what she could do, but it just didn't work.
Killed it.
Didn't work. And I could not give it to her because guess what? Even though I knew her and I wanted to, somebody else came along and killed it. It would have been a disservice not to give it to that person who showed all the way up.
And I want to just capitalize on show all the way up, because I want everyone to understand too, I'm always thinking about this for my own auditions, that I am competing against relationships, not just acting.
You never know.
And so I can audition for something, and I'm not just vying to be the best person for the role, but I'm also vying to be the best person for the role, despite the fact that that director, that showrunner, that producer has worked with another actor who's also great for the role and has worked with them once, 5 times. And that's another thing that I don't just have to knock out in terms of being right for the role and a fantastic performance, but it has to be so delivered that exactly what you're saying, it would be a disservice for them not to cast me, even though they have the relationship with the other actress.
And not everyone will do that. Let's be clear. Not everyone will care that way, but
you don't always have the time.
Yeah. And some directors and producers, they may still just go with their people because they know what they could do, what they could deliver. They may have name value. They may have, who knows what it may be. But if you are great, you will not be forgotten. There was a young man who auditioned for me for a role, and he did not fit the role. The person was supposed to be a vet, built, just came back from Iraq, cut, boom, 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 boom. This person wasn't built, very slim. You wouldn't have believed it. You wouldn't have believed it. But his audition blew me away. And I was like, if you were great, you will not be forgotten. And he ended up being a lead in my next project.
I mean, that
within
story
a year
is so common. Yes.
Like,
that story is so common.
If you were great, you will not be forgotten. I have had people who didn't physically match what I was looking for, but they were so great, was like, I don't even care. It would be a disservice. You were making me see this character in a different way because of how well you were delivering this audition. And again, that was through a self-tape.
Yes, see, and again, solving the story, but through them. And that is what I think can surprise, I see it happen all the time, can surprise creative and be like, you know what? That's really interesting. I didn't think of the role with this physical type, but delivered this way, there's an arrogance to it that I think is maybe even more interesting than the other physical type that I had maybe imagined.
You just have to do it with confidence, and you have to do it with truth. Because if you're not adding a level of truth to this, if you are just acting it out, someone else is going to outact you, because
somebody's going to bring
they're going to bring the truth. They're going to bring that essence that makes it real, where I feel like I'm just watching dialogue between my character and someone else.
Yes, yes. I love that. But wait, Cuffie, you powerhouse, rock star, goddess, genius of care and inspiration. Wait. M20 for life. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Castability. All right, so I talked about getting free sides for Selftape May. All you need to do to receive 20 free PDFs and a free pre-made scene schedule, wouldn't that be nice? All you had to do is show up and act, is download the Castability app and create an account. Within 24 hours, you're going to receive a link to all 20 original PDFs, including each scene's archetype, genre, what's their tone, what they're tonally inspired by, as well as log lines. Feel free to unmute your tapes because there are no copyrights. They are written for you to experiment with and to play. All 20 scenes are suitable for all ages and genders, and a new scene is available every single day of the week in May. You can follow the schedule and have every day's scene all picked out for you. Who doesn't love that? You will also automatically receive one free scene submission if you would like to try submitting and receiving a ranking that Castability does. So the ranking system is super great. Since all winning scenes are featured on the gallery of the app, whether you submit or not, you can still watch and learn the winning scenes for free. So if you do a scene and you don't feel like submitting it, no big deal. If this is about you and your practice and your learning, they're still going to post the person that won through ranking that scene, and you can see the difference between that person and what you did. And I have to say, that's so incredible. That is fast, real-time comparison of whether or not you're working properly, because usually you have to audition for something and then wait 9 months for it to come out to see what happened? Why didn't I book that? What was it? And then you watch it and you're like, oh, I see. They cast somebody like that, and that's really interesting. Or, oh, interesting, I was told never use a prop, and this person's using 6 props, and it really helps the environment of the scene. you guys, I couldn't love that idea more. So you guys know I love data. The purpose of the app is basically if you wanted to join, you submit a scene that you have taped of theirs, and then a casting director is going to look at it and is going to rank you like 1 through 5, I think. And the person that is on the top goes to the next round. So then another casting director goes and watches like 5 people who all received 5s. So at the top. And then from that, they rank those people into 1 through 5. And then somebody else goes and says, okay, now out of that, who is our 5? And it keeps going until you have the final 5. And then somebody looks at the final 5 and chooses a winner. And then that person gets posted. Our amazing Christina Colgan, through her year of doing self-tapes, she went from never being selected. Now she's winning all the time through her self-tape practice. And that's getting posted, and casting directors, real-time casting directors, are looking at her work, are knowing who she is, are getting excited about her. So go to castability.actor and download the app and get your 20 free sides for the month of May. I'm super pumped about this. It's very exciting.
Hey, Audrey, what's up? Alex here. I'm calling from LA. Quick question. I have never been in an audition room for a theatrical audition. I have only sent in self-tapes. You might be like, why? What? Huh? I don't get it. Well, I didn't start working in the LA market or acting in the LA market until January 2020, and then obviously the pandemic hit. My question to you is, book the room. Yay, love it. Super down. I would love to hear your perspective. Let me say that. I'd love to hear your perspective on book the room as we're all self-taping. What does it mean? How does it look? What are ways we can book the room in a different way? Personality can come off in a self-tape, but it's obviously not the same as when you step in, say, hi, how you doing? Show a little of your personality within that. So I'm curious, how do you think, or how do you encourage actors today to book the room as we're all taping from home? Thank you. Really, really appreciate the podcast, and look forward to meeting you one day. Cheers.
Hi, Alex. Thanks so much for this question. I look forward to meeting you one day. This is such a great point. I was talking to a really good friend of mine who said out of all the auditions he's ever had, and he's a working actor, he said he did his numbers, and since moving to LA pre-pandemic, he's only had 4 in-person auditions. And I just remember thinking, like, that's crazy. And of those 4, he booked 2 of them. That's really interesting numbers. A lot of people who were consistent bookers in the room are experiencing that they're not booking over self-tapes. And there's a few reasons why that can be. One is going into the room and having like ease and confidence is such a big part of booking the job, because everyone just feels like, oh, you can handle this opportunity. And a lot of actors go into the room and they're so freaked out and panicked. Their work can't come through. They've got too much on it. And so their audition in their room just lacked the ease and the presence that it needed to book. But now that everyone can take a million takes, those actors who brought in the room ease and confidence, that skill, that special thing that they brought that was different from everybody else, that's now gone. Some other things is maybe an ability to cry on cue. So you're sitting in the waiting room for 40 minutes and then you go in, and then can you go in the room and hit all the emotional notes and tell the story, as heavy as it may be. And some actors might get in the room and freeze up and not be able to do that. But if you have 20 takes, hopefully you can manage to get there. Another thing is jargon. Some actors can learn jargon in like a night, and most actors, they can't. So going in and having to do a bunch of jargon was a reason why a lot of actors used to not be able to book those jobs. But now that you have, again, 20 takes, you can get the jargon. You can also just kind of like cheat by looking at like the sheet next to your camera. A lot of people do that. So if that's true, then if that was a special skill that you brought to the table, that no longer is a special skill that you add that others don't. In terms of what booking the room means in self-tapes, that's why I had said in previous episodes, really look at, are you getting called back in? The truth is, what really is hard about self-tapes is we don't get really feedback. So if you do a great audition, and we talk about this in this episode with Patricia, like you can do a great audition and everyone can talk about it. We talked about it with Julia last week. And it can go around the casting office and everyone can think like, wow, this is really incredible work. And you can be a favorite and you will never get that feedback. You will literally never hear that. They won't call your reps. No one's going to email them and say, hey, just so you know, this is our favorite tape. We passed it all around the room. We're not casting them. Like they're not doing that. You just become a favorite. In terms of how that's different from The Room, I have to say, I don't know that it is. I mean, you know, I love when casting directors say that they're also like the best actors in Los Angeles because somebody could come in the room and finish an audition and that they're like, oh, great, thank you so much. And you, the actor, leave and you're like, oh, she said, oh, great, thank you so much. And she seemed like really genuinely excited by what I did. But actually you left the room and they were like, oh my God, did they read the script? What just happened? I mean, just can't call that person back in. Like that happened all the time. So really, whether you did a good job and booked the room or not is probably a story you were make-believe telling yourself in the room anyway. The only real indication of whether or not you've booked the room is over time, are you getting called back in by that office? Now, that said, it could also not be an indication that you've booked the room. It could be an indication that your rep has an incredible relationship with that casting director and you just haven't like shat the bed enough that they've called your rep and are like, listen, give me anyone you have except Audrey Moore, please. She is the worst. So it could just be a really great relationship. At the end of the day, I think the best thing that you can do is do whatever you can do to be undeniable. Just be undeniable. And if you work to be undeniable and make sure that every opportunity is an opportunity to really have somebody be like, wow, this actor is incredible. I'm not casting them in this role for blah, blah, blah reason, or I'm moving them forward. The director's passing on them for whatever reason, but they're somebody to watch. They're somebody to get behind. That's the work you got to do. Incredible, undeniable, consistent work to the best of your ability over time is what builds relationships and is what leads to a long, sustained career.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So I know you are creating a lot of incredible content, largely in the African American content space. And I want to talk about the value of seeing yourself in content, seeing creators who portray your stories and people you know. And also, I think the value for other audience members who maybe didn't grow up in that environment or around that culture to watch and view that content in and of itself and just as an entertaining experience. I know that there is obviously limitations that are being placed upon the African American creative forever. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, as far as non-Black talent watching content starring Black talent. I think it's vital because there are all types of stories that are being told. It's not just the rom-coms. There are these wonderful biopics and other stories that, you know, the world is completely open and there are all types of characters and the diversity is all there. But I think just like as African Americans, we've had to grow up for years watching content that didn't star us and feature us. But, you know, you fall in love with it and you see a reflection of yourself. A lot of tales now are universal. It's just us in the front of it. And people have been introduced to the culture in so many different ways that watching just one program that is starring African-American talent could be a disservice because there's so many types of stories being told and so many types of characters. And I feel like sometimes people can be boxed in with one type of character, but there are so many talented and brilliant African-American writers and directors and producers producing content to show you the many facets of the culture and of representation. So I think it's vital to watch different things. I think it's vital to watch great things. What are people talking about and why? And then the things people may not be talking about yet. It's important to know who's out there because that's truly artists supporting artists. Just period. Right. Even through your viewership of supporting these different shows is helpful and supportive. You know what I mean?
Realizing, is your content viewing experience segregated?
Yeah.
And I have really found so much furthering of care and camaraderie and empathy and support and love and connection of all diverse, non-Audrey types, right? Through the simple act of viewing content of those stories. Check your content and see if your content is segregated.
And it's interesting because you never know. Like I was saying, there are a lot of universal tales that are being told. Stories about families where, yes, that's an African American family, but your family might have struggled just like that. Let's see how this family gets out of it. Let's see how this family deals with it. So I just think it's just us knowing so that, one, we can have not only an understanding of the culture, because again, you have to watch more than one thing to understand the culture.
Yes.
The culture is not limited, but also to understand the types of storytelling that's out there. We're watching everything to help us be stronger, be greater, understanding why certain things are getting yeses. Why aren't you?
Yeah, because I know the listeners and I know that their values are in alignment with this. And it is sometimes just takes a little moment to say, okay, but then are the actions aligning with your values?
Yes.
And if they're not, I would love for everyone, if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, you know, when I think of what I've watched, I think Patricia's right, that I've only watched one show with African-American talent, created by African-American talent, or any of the underrepresented communities. I would love to just like give an assignment. Just this month, watch another one. Just pick one more and just watch it and just start to move the ball rolling in a growth
And
direction.
can I add to that?
Please.
And watch something by someone you don't know or haven't heard of recently.
I love that. And tell them about that, because everyone's listening and they're like, but I watched Insecure and I watched I May Destroy You. And you're so right about people who are coming up. And what else is your thoughts about people that you may not have heard of yet?
Well, as one of the people that you may not have heard of yet.
Yes, right. Yes, that's
it's
right.
interesting because
They have now.
Thank you so much, because platforms like this is so helpful, because it's that thing of you get hot once you're hot. So an agent wants you once you're hot. I haven't heard a lot of stories of agents pulling up that unknown that just had that talent on that stage, and they're like, hey, you're going to be the next great. You got to have something going sometimes for people to think you're worth the investment, because you already have something going on.
That's right. You equal money for them.
You equal money. They already can see that you're not a bad risk because you already have something going on. But for some of us, it's hard to have that something going on, because it's not just about being talented, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, because I know you have a lot of talented listeners that haven't been put on yet. It's not just about being talented anymore. That doesn't mean you don't show up. That doesn't mean you don't show out. That doesn't mean you don't deliver, but we have to be realistic that there are more entities that go into what success looks like in this industry. And sometimes it's just supporting those who are on their way up as well.
And what I'd love to add to that is that for all the actors who just think, I just wish people would see my work, like I'm really great and you're on the way up, just the same way that you wish that creatives who are already, quote unquote, have all of the awards and all of the things would watch you and see you perform, even though you're not a series regular on a whatever TV show, that yes, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and give time to their stories and to their journey.
And there may be some buzz about them. They may have some things going on. And it's just, it's almost like we're all just one project away from what they say, making it, right? All just one project away. So you just never know what's around the corner. You never know with your investment of time, what that can lend to. Your hustle may not lead to a check immediately, but it might lead to those relationships that will help you have longevity in this industry. The hustle is real. It doesn't stop. When you think you've made it, you realize actually it's just hustling on a different level. You know, it is never really it. There is never really there. Like you have to really be prepared to keep going, and you have to make sure that you are centered and you are balanced, so you don't lose yourself in the midst of it all.
I love it. But wait, Cuffie, you powerhouse, rock star, goddess, genius of care and inspiration. Wait. M20 for life. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Casting Networks. Okay, Casting Networks. If you have an agent, generally you have to be on Casting Networks. You will have a Casting Networks profile. Okay, so what are we talking about? Okay, so this platform has more professional roles booked than any other casting service. More than 130,000 roles and 30,000 projects were posted last year. That's crazy. Now that production's back at pre-pandemic levels, you guys, even more jobs are being released this year. I have been auditioning like a mofo, much of which is coming from Casting Networks. Okay, so with a premium membership, you can submit yourself unlimited on roles, upload unlimited photos, and you can upload unlimited reels and skill clips. Everyone's always asking me about skills like, Audrey, I play piano, I speak fluent Mandarin and Russian. Also, I go horseback riding. Did you know I can use a sword? I'm like, that's amazing. But then you do need clips that show that you can do that. Otherwise, it's just like a skill that nobody has evidence in. So whatever your skill is, you play incredible basketball, you can lick your elbow. I dare you to try it. It's like impossible. I only know one girl who can do it. See? Everyone's going to try it. Jesse's trying it right now. I know one person who can do it. It's impossible except for her.
I'm pretty close.
Nope, you're not close. You're
No,
like
not
5
close
inches away. So whatever your special skill is, you want to have those clips up there. Okay, so for a limited time, Casting Networks is offering listeners $50 off a premium annual membership using the code Audrey when you check out. Okay, the instructions on how to redeem this offer can be found on castingnetworks.com/Audrey. castingnetworks.com/Audrey. Don't wait too long. The offer is going to expire. And I'm really serious. Even if you have friends who are not going to do Selftape May, please give them that. We're not getting kickbacks from it or anything. They've just paid us to sponsor, but we're not getting I don't get like X amount of money for everyone who signs up. I really, truly just want everyone to save $50. So please tell your friends, save $50. Promo code Audrey for $50 off.
Hey Audrey, this is Becca and I'm calling from Sydney, Australia, though I am American. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about online acting profiles. I know Casting Networks just went through a big change in the infrastructure of their website, and I know you just recently talked about Casting Frontier on the podcast, and I was just wondering if you could kind of go through, like, what are the ones we got to have? What are the things we got to have on there? You've obviously talked a little bit about it, but I was wondering if you could just do an intensive of all the profiles. Thanks so much. Bye.
Okay, so you definitely have to have Casting Networks. If you're going to do any commercials at all, you have to do Casting Networks. But there's also, as you could hear in the intro, there's so much more than just that they have branched out to and have taken over with. Also, breakdown services. You have to have breakdown services. That's Actors Access /breakdown services. And also Casting Frontier. All three of them are sort of the vital three. There are other things that you can have. A lot of auditions are being uploaded to Cast It. That's just depending on who's casting it and what your relationship is with your agent. You have to have headshots on there. More than one is nice. It has to be a lot more than one. That's dependent upon you and your casting and where your resume level is at. That's a conversation for you and your rep. Reels are very helpful. They want to see if you can act. So, having a reel on there that can show you can act. Now, sometimes you maybe don't have reels up yet because, you have to have footage, you have to have the money to make the footage or have booked something. So that's a really big part of it. One thing you can do through Selftape May is, if you post your Selftape May tapes and then there's one or two that you just get a ton of great feedback on where everyone is like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. You guys haven't seen Michelle Meredith's tape for Hustle that she did. She did like a tape for Hustle. It was I couldn't watch it enough times. It was so good. Something like that, just so they can see who you are and see you, doing your work. That's a great way to use Selftape May. Definitely, like I said, special skills. If you have special skills, if you have something unique about you that you can do, and it's just sitting on your resume, but you don't have evidence of it, I just think that's a huge mistake because you're asking your reps and everybody to remember that you have that skill. But if every time they click to submit you, they see on there something that says French language reel, it could just be you doing a self-tape in fluent French and sometimes going in and out of French to English so they can hear your French and they can hear you speaking English and check your accent on both of them. You know, that just helps people see that you can do it, and they'll see that. They'll be like, oh, right, she speaks French. And they just will remind them every time that they click on you. So any special skills. And otherwise, just keep your resume up to date. Keep your footage on there. Anything that you've booked, the sooner you can add your new footage on there, the better it is. I mean, in like 48 hours after something has aired, I'm putting that up to my reel. I'm giving it to my reps. I'm saying, don't forget, I have this footage on here now. That way it just like keeps me current. It's not footage just from like 8 years ago. It's like, here it is. It just aired. I'm working currently. I'm working right now. It's just great to have the materials that are going to help you book. And those are pretty much it. All right. I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners? Social media, things you want them to watch?
Sure. You can follow me at Cuffie Jones. That is Cuffie Jones on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I currently have a film, Twice Bitten. It's my first feature film directorial debut. It's a thriller, strangely enough, because I'm like loving rom-coms, but it's fun with some great talent. That's currently streaming on BET Plus and pops up here and there on BET. And then my series Stuck With You is currently streaming on All Black. That's AMC's new channel. And I have some other projects that'll be coming out. Shot a Christmas movie this year that I don't think it's coming out this season, but will be out next season. I have another thriller that'll be coming out. I have another project that I'll be sharing more on social media, but just good stuff brewing.
Love it.
I'm a writer for hire.
Hustling.
I'm a director for hire. You know, the hustle is real.
Great.
I'm just grateful for the opportunities that have been given. But if I could just say this one last thing for anybody that's looking
whatever
to
you
be
want.
a creative. I know a lot of actors that are writing now and trying to create content for themselves to help really plunge them further into the industry. I think that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. Majority of writing is rewriting. And becoming a writer doesn't happen overnight. Some people it can because they know the right people, but it doesn't. Well, since I'm not making a check here, I can make a check there. It is still a lot of work and I've been out here since 2004. It's a craft. And if you have a beautiful story you want to tell, there are a lot of amazing writers that you probably can get with, a wonderful community of writers. I think one thing that drains us a lot emotionally and even spiritually is when we invest a lot of time in things that we shouldn't be doing or that we're not excited about doing.
Experienced.
Make sure that you're investing your time in the things you should be investing your time in. And if you're going to commit to writing and doing those things, then invest the time to be great at it, to tell those stories, to get out there, work at whatever level you're on. Look to the right and the left of you. You don't always have to reach up to try to get support. There's somebody to the right or left of you that might be able to help you, whether it's someone that's willing to hold the camera or run the sound, write the script or direct it for you. Look to the right or the left, and then together you guys can move up.
I love that. That's so beautiful because you're talking about a long-term structure of support, of community, of tribe, of ensemble. And we all got into this business for those things. If we wanted to sit in our rooms by ourselves and never be amongst other people, you know, we could have chosen a different art form.
Absolutely.
But this is a community-based art form. So growing and building. And I love that you said that, you know, looking to your left and looking to your right and growing together. There's so much power I have found in doing that.
Because you can miss out on somebody great right there.
Super special.
That you can reach instead of, you know, trying to get to Spike Lee, which is great. And you might get him. But hey, there may be somebody to the right or left that might be able to produce your project or tell your story, help you do something just to get it going. Get it out. Get it out.
I love this.
Get it out.
I love this. Thank you so much for your time.
Me.
I know it's so valuable. Follow her on Instagram.
Please.
Go check out her projects. We'll post everything in the show notes, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we've got the one, the only, Amber Stonebreaker. Woo, woo, woo. You might recognize her from her incredibly successful 3 years in a row of Selftape May. There are only 20 people who have done Selftape May all 3 years in a row and completed it. And the success that she has had from the movement, we talk about the increase in auditions. We talk about the increase in booking. We talk about how much more money she is making since she joined the union. We talk about leveling up. We talk about all of the things. She is such an inspiration and a delight. Amber Stonebreaker, whoop whoop. Love you. Special thanks to Patricia Cuffie Jones. Patricia, I love you so much. I can't wait for you to be able to come over for dinner and bring that lovely spouse of yours and talk all things just joy and magnificence and creativity and collaboration and all things wonderful. I love you to the moon and back again. You are a treasure, and we are so blessed to have you on this earth. This episode was mixed and mastered by Thomas Hank Snodgrass, produced by Jesse Lumen, still so handsome, everyone. It's been a hard couple years, and I have to say, he's managed to get even handsomer. This episode is edited by Anisha Adusamili. That's Anisha Adusamili. Anisha, you are one talented mofo. I love you. I could not love you more. Show music by Ari De Niro and theme song by Alok Mehta and 108 Hill. All right, everybody, don't forget your towel.